Hi friends, it's Sarah, the owner and maker behind Multifarious Nature. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are here for day 2 of the MellyKnits Great Guts Adventure Advent. So day 2 is Molly, Border Leicester Lamb, and it has it sorts from Coniagas Textiles, British Columbia, and there's 5 grams of Tussah silk. So hopefully you guys can read that in case you're interested in what the content is. So I'll do kind of like I did yesterday, or the last time you guys watched this, my last recording, and show you what the locks look like. So this is Border Leicester, absolutely beautiful. This is a lamb fleece, so very shiny, super silky, nice long staple length, beautiful like wavy lock structure. So that's what it looks like in the lock form. And then here is what it looks like all opened. So this is 20 grams of beautiful Border Leicester fluff. And here is the Tussah silk. So the Tussah silk is a really pretty coppery color. Really, really nice. I'm excited because this will be the color, because the Border Leicester is a beautiful cream white color. So this is really going to be the color that it's going to be, but it'll soften that color. So all I'm going to do, again, when I open my locks, is I go like this and just open it up. There's like basically no veggie matter in this fleece. It's just gorgeous. I think I found like 2 pieces of veggie matter, maybe 3. It's very common, I think, with this type of lock structure, because everything it falls right out and it doesn't tend to necessarily get stuck in there. But again, I've not ever worked with this exact breed. So it could just be that she just got a really beautiful fleece, which is quite possible. And yeah, excited. So locks are very long. I don't know if you saw that staple length. I should have showed you that, but here you go. This is a staple length. So we've got some nice length here, and just beautiful. And all I'm going to do is I've got my handmade drum carder here that my husband built for me. We're going to feed it in, and I zoomed in a little bit more so you guys can hopefully see this a little bit better. And we'll feed it in a little bit at a time, and I'm probably going to do a little bit more layering of the color because I want to blend it more this time. So we'll turn this on. Again, that first pass I want to do pretty slow. And there's like the 1 or 2 pieces of veggie matter that I've seen in this entire fleece. It's very, very clean. Very clean fleece. So I just open this up and spread it across nice and thin, and feed it onto my drum carder. And I don't even think I'm going to do about a quarter of this before I start adding the silk. However, I will say I want to get a good established layer of this fleece before I add the silk, because I do want to blend this, because this is a very nice solid colored fleece. I want to make sure that the silk gets blended in there nicely. So this one's a little bit of a bear, but if you pull it and keep pulling, if there is a knot in there or something, it will get separated. So that was a little short bit. I'm just going to pull that out. And again, just keep spreading this until I have at least a thin layer. It's very shiny. This is just gorgeous. So mixing this with that silk, it's really going to complement each other nicely. All right, and then I tested the silk. So some silks, you have to watch the staple length. This is what the silk length is. That'll be fine. My drum carder's huge, so that's not a big deal. But if you had a smaller drum carder, you might cut the silk. I don't know. This is not a bad length, though. I think this should be fine on most drum carters. You could also comb this if I wanted to comb it, but I don't want to comb it. I think I'm just going to put just a little bit more Again, I'm just trying to get that nice base so that way I can get some good blending going on. All right, so we've got 5 grams of this. It's a decent amount. We're just going to start adding this. And again, I'm going to just slightly add it here and there. And just lightly. And you can use your brush. This isn't the brush that I use to help compact it onto my drum carder. And you can do that to help get a nice amount of it spread out. Just keep on going with that till I get a really nice layer. Oops, that was a big chunk. Don't usually like to put it on that thick, but again, I'm going to run this through 2 to 3 times, if not more than that, but probably not. I usually don't do more than 4 passes of a fleece on the drum carder. There's really no point in that. I mean, I guess I to each their own, right? I just haven't ever found a need to do that many passes. But if you want something blended nicely, you're going to have to do as many passes as it takes until it's well blended. Okay, so now we're going to add some more Border Leicester on here. And just do nice and thin layers. Apologize, I've got a little bit of a sniffle here. We've been outside with wood that we gathered. One of our family members was very kind, allowed us to come and get some wood from their property. We were out there for a while and it's quite cold. So I've got like a little sniffle going on here, but it's primarily just because, yeah, it's cold outside. So my body is still trying to get warm. And we've been inside for a good, I'd say 2 hours. So it's just amazing how that cold can really get into your bones. All right, we're going to add some more. And then I might add some more of the silk. So this is an electric drum carder. I highly recommend one if you can get one. They're very expensive. It was less expensive for my husband to build one, but it does take a little bit of know-how of building and working with the wood and everything. So it just depends. If you're not very familiar or you don't have the tools to put something like this together, buying one probably would be the best idea rather than try and build one yourself. But if you're handy or you know someone who's handy, I think it's very worth your time to build your own. So again, I like to use this brush and I just compress that in there. And that way I can keep on adding the wool and then it will be nicely blended. And it's just, this is a really just stiff bristled brush. I don't know if you see that, stiff bristled, and it's not going to ruin the drum carder. All right, so I'm almost to the point where I'm going to do another layer of silk, and then we will add the last couple layers here. So not overly complicated. It really isn't overly complicated, but it does take some patience, and yeah, we just keep adding as we go. So now I'm going to add some more silk. Again, I just kind of hold it against it. You can use your brush that you use to help compact the fibers if you need to. So you just want to make sure it's actually grabbing fiber and pulling it onto your carder, which it is. Sometimes you have to push down into it a little bit. Each drum carder is definitely different, so you'll get a feel for yours. And you can keep dragging it back and forth like this even, like slowly dragging it as it's pulling the fibers out. That's a decent way to get a nice coverage. And I think I'll do another layer of Border Leicester and maybe one more layer of our silk then. I am actually going to use it all. I do want to blend it all together. There are some advents where it's kind of like you don't have to use all of your fibers, but I really do want to. And now we're going to add some more Border Leicester. So again, you just want to make sure you kind of open it the best you can, because it does have a tendency to want to go back together if you don't pull it apart enough. But it's so silky. Hopefully you can see that shine on camera. It's super shiny and absolutely gorgeous. So put this in here. I think those are not seconds. It still has some length there. So we'll just go ahead and add that across. All right, get some more silk in here. The size of this drum carder, I'm trying to think of the size of it. I think it's a foot across is the size that my husband made. And as I mentioned before, it's 120 TPI on the large one and 90 on the Liquorin. I wanted to do something that was slightly more on the fine, like medium to fine side with the teeth. So when it comes to the fibers that it would like to work with. And I think we're almost there. A little bit more silk, and then do that Border Leicester one more time on here too. All right, get some more Border Leicester in here. The last bit of Border Leicester, and then we'll do the last of the silk. Hopefully you guys are finding this fun and interesting. I enjoy it. I think it's a really fun thing to listen to as you're working on project. Or if you're just curious about the type of fleece and seeing how it goes onto a drum carder, things like that. This is the kind of stuff that I like to watch, so I figured maybe you would be interested as well. So hopefully you are finding this interesting. And if you are finding it interesting, please do like and subscribe so that one, I know that I should be making future content like this, because then I know you enjoy it. But also then you'll be notified when I post a new video. And this advent is a 13-day advent, so there will be 13 different days, different blends of fibers, and might get some really interesting ones because MellyKnits is notorious for having unique blends like possum. Who knows? I know she's done it in past fiber shenanigans, so I might get something like that, which would be really cool. I've never worked with anything like that before, and I've spun silk before, but I've not ever blended it myself on a drum carder. So this is a exciting new experience. All right, so once you get it all on there like that, you can continue to compact it. And the compacting helps when you take it off as well. So that way they kind of stick together. And I'm going to get this to the point where I have that opening. There we go. And I'm going to use my handy screwdriver to doffer this off. Because I did use the entire length of my drum carder, it comes off very nicely. And what I'm going to do is just slowly take this off. I do use this little crochet hook tool to help pull it off of the drum critter. And it just helps to not damage the teeth. And it'll get it right off of there. You need to change the direction of my drum so that way I can take it off as well. And the nice long fibers like this, if you get close to the base of your drum carder, it's actually pretty easy to take it off and get most of the fleece. And you don't really need to use a tool like this. But that's just if you have a nice long fleece, like long staple length, like the Border Leicester. Alright, getting there. I hope you guys can see the beautiful sheen on this Border Leicester. It is so shiny. And of course the silk is beautifully shiny. So you put the two together and you just end up with this gorgeous sheen. I think the yarn is just going to be stunning. Very, very excited about this. Alright. There we have it. So there's the first pass. As you can see, it's not terribly blended. It's kind of a little bit all over the place and a little nutty. That will get more evenly distributed the more passes that you make. So I'm going to do my favorite thing where I divide it into quarters. And actually, like I said, I normally do quarters, but I think what I'm going to do is actually not only divide it quarters, but take it into chunks. So I'm dividing it in lengthwise into quarter amounts. And then I am going to just pull the chunks apart like this and spread it across and feed it onto my drum carder. That is a really good way to get a lot more blended. I did turn the speed up a little bit on this, and I think it'll be okay. Just so it doesn't take us forever. And again, if you just pull it across like this, this helps it evenly distribute. If you find any little bits that are like knots and nubbins that you've missed earlier, this would be a good time to pull those out. And again, spread this across and feed it on gently. So pretty. I always admire when folks get a really evenly blended yarn. That can take quite a few passes sometimes, depending on type of drum carder you have and all of that. So right now, again, if you saw my episode of day 1 of the Advent, I stuck to about just over half of the width of this drum carder for the second pass. I'm actually doing the full length again, or width, and I will probably eventually start working my way to a more narrow amount, but it's a really good way to get this more blended by spreading it out versus compacting it together too much. Stick that on there. Okay, and divide this other section into quarters and then pull it apart. This darker gray is from the bat from yesterday. I'm going to pull that out so it's not so combined. If this kind of thing happens where some of your finer fibers get stuck on your liquor in, which is a bummer if that happens, it's really annoying. Part of that is compacting your fibers. So that's again why I'm going to use my brush to get those nice and compacted on here. And then if it's still on here and not coming off, you can take your little tool to get those off. So that's where this little tool becomes handy, and you can just kind of go in there. Now, Melly did say she gives you more than enough fiber to have 25 grams. I just always, I try to get as much of the fiber as possible because I feel like it's just so precious, but really I shouldn't be so concerned with it. Okay, and again, spread this out. I'm gonna end up with little fibers all over the place. Makes it extra interesting when you do that. But this really fine, soft fibers like your silk, gosh, Angora is notorious for getting stuck on my liquor in because it's so fine and just little bitty pieces sometimes. It becomes a bit of a headache to put on the drum carder. So Angora is one that I like to hand card and maybe add it. And if I add it, I just add it to the last pass after I've hand carded it. That way the majority goes onto your drum carder and not getting stuck on the liquor end because it's such fine, short little fibers that liquor end just wants to grab it. And last little chunk. Okay. And just a little bit more of that silk. All right. You're going to slow this down. There it is. Have my opening here. You can see by looking at this opening, it's getting a lot more blended. There's still some lines going on here. There's some differentiation going on, but definitely getting more blended, which is what we're looking for. Look how nicely blended that's looking. So we're now starting to get there. That was only the second pass. So like I said, normally you do like 3 passes or more if you want something where it's very, very blended into like a solid color or mostly solid. Let me change my direction here. There we go. So this is that second pass. Nicely blended. We're getting there. Again, when you're taking it off of your drum carder, gripping it as close to your teeth of your drum carder as possible is important. It's interesting working with silk in this way. I've never done this before. I've always had pre-blended, like roving and things like that. It's definitely interesting to see how it's blending and also how it's not. But you can see this is much more blended than even that first pass. This is pretty good, but I definitely would do it again if I want this to be more of a solidary color. So we're getting really close now. So again, I'm gonna pull this apart and run it through yet again. Get my direction going in the right way here. And spread it apart. Any areas where there's like chunks of silk, if there is at all, open that up and spread it across. Feed it on. And get my little brush on here to help compact it into my drum carder. It's fun. I find this really fun to see how it changes, how it blends, that kind of thing. I don't know. I find that very fascinating. Definitely kind of a color theory end of things. So there's always this Carter tax. I don't know if you follow MellyKnits, you've probably heard her say that. The Carter tax is when it gets stuck on here. You get little bits and bobs that you end up losing because it gets stuck on your liquor. It gets thrown. You might end up walking away with it on your person. Those are like your Carter tax. And it's just not going to be what you're spinning at that point. So she does give you extra accounting for that kind of thing, which is really nice. A little nubbin on there. It just doesn't want to come off. There we go. All right. Beautiful. Okay. That on there. So you see how there's a lot that got caught on here? It's because there was a large amount of that fiber there and there wasn't a lot of the teeth really open because you need to compact it. And so now it's coming off of here, the liquor, but it was kind of stuck on there and it can get compacted into it if you don't start compacting it onto your large drum. Something that you just learn from doing. Okay, next. Just distribute that across. So some drum carters that you purchase will have a brush like this attached to the machine. And that is pretty nice. I can see why that's handy. So that's something that I think I would like as an addition. If I can get that added at some point, I would like to do that to this drum carter, because that I found quite handy to compact it in that way. Okay. And I think we're going to do 2 more chunks, taking this one big one and turning it into 2. Spread it out, this, and then let it feed in. And then we'll use our brush again to compact it into our drum. So I always feel like it's up to you when you feel like it's blended enough. For me, I feel like a color is blended enough if it looks like the color, like if it reads as that color. Because once you start spinning it, it's going to compact it and it's going to make it look more solid. So you really don't need it to look solid here, but if it reads as a color, when you spin it, it will look like that color. I hope that makes sense. Is that when you spin it, it compacts all those fibers together and the whites just shine under the color and it just amplifies the color. All right, this is looking really nice. So I think what I'm going to do, let's just see what it looks like when we take it off. I might do one more pass. But when I do this pass, if I do one more pass, I'm going to aim for about half the width of this. I know this video is probably getting longer because I've done a lot more passes than that first one that I did. But this is definitely a different type of blend that I'm putting on here And I'm definitely aiming to get a more semi-solid color read to it. So as we spin this forward, you can see that beautiful color. So it really reads as that beautiful copper color now. That is really pretty. Looks like rose gold, kind of coppery rose gold. Oh, so pretty. I really like that. I really like that a lot. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to run this through again. And that's just something you kind of have to figure out for yourself, however you want it to look. And of course, none of it's wrong. Let's see here. And I think, what do I want to do? Let me take this off of here. So this looks absolutely stunning. Feel like it could go through one more time. And I think it would benefit it. So I think I'm going to do that. The thing I'm going to do that's different though, instead of splitting this into chunks, like little chunks, I'm going to split it into quarters lengthwise. But when I feed it on, I'm really just going to feed it as is. I don't think I'm really going to do much of anything except aim for about that halfway mark. And then it's going to layer on top of each other and it will get nicely blended. So I'm going to aim for this to be not super fast. And we're going to feed that in. And I'll just compact it as I go. And I think this is going to be really nice. All right. That is looking very nice. So you can see how that's, I don't know if you can see that, but how it's picking it up off of that liquor in once I start compressing into the large roller. That's what I want, because I don't want a bunch of it getting stuck on here. So I'm just gonna manually add some of that back onto there. Okay. And then the next one, same thing. Aim for like the middle-ish. That's really nice. This is such a beautiful color. I am really excited to see how this advent works up totally with these natural colors. I think they're all natural colors. I'm not certain. Of course, the silk has been dyed. All right, and then this one, divide that in half and feed that one in. Again, as close to the middle as possible within reason. This copper color is just so pretty. Big fan of it. And I will show you guys what these look like spun up. However, that won't be during this Advent season. It will probably be after Advent season because I'm going to be hand spinning my Advent, the Multifarious Nature Advent. So definitely follow along if you are interested in that one as well. And my Advent is the hand processed wool that's ready to spin, and they're 6 20-gram days for spinning. All beautiful rare breeds. All right, right near the end here, Miss Molly, the Border Leicester Lamb, and the gorgeous Tussah silk. Okay, I think we're gonna call it. Grab this last little bit and get it on here. Okay, I think that is that. Okay, we're going to turn this off. Right there's our nice opening. And duffer it off. Beautiful. Oh, look at that. That is gorgeous. See how nicely blended that is? I hope you guys can see that. Oh, you maybe can't. I don't know. I'm looking at the viewfinder here. I zoomed you in a little bit more than I did yesterday so that you could see a little bit better. So hopefully you can see that. I'll hold it up to the camera once I get it off as well so you can really see it nicely. It is beautifully blended. And to me, this is the kind of blending I want when it comes to a wool like this, where it's such a beautiful, shiny cream white, and you want to add color to it and make it look like that color. So that was 4 passes, and I did the full width 3 times, and then I did the narrow width once at the end here. And that really helped me get a nice distribution of color throughout. Okay, this last bit off of here. And there is Miss Molly blended with that beautiful Tussah silk. I hope you guys can see how gorgeous that is, how it reads as more of a singular color now. And I'm really excited to show you what it looks like spun up because I think it's going to be beautiful. So just going to gently, this is so, there seems to be so much static in this. I do feel like I probably should have used a little bit of a spray, like a wool conditioner on there, just so that way it's not so staticky, because it's just clinging. I have so much of this Border Leicester stuck to my sweater right now, or my sweatshirt, but I'm just going to roll it in on itself here. And there she is. Beautiful. Very exciting. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's day 2 of the Advent by MellyKnits Great Guts Adventure. And please stay tuned for the next couple episodes. There will be 13 of these, so that's my goal, at least. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care. Bye.